Hey y'all, wanted to hop on here and talk some more about some stuff, just in case it's not in y'all's feed already. Um, so I wanted to hop on here really to mention this actually, but today was also the same day that Netanyahu came before our Congress, and our Congress decided to give him a standing ovation among other things. And just wanted to make sure that everyone is aware of that because, when we're talking about directing the course of the rest of our lives, I think it could be pretty significant. Um, anyway, before we get into all that, I also wanted to draw some attention to the climate stuff. Um, this is pretty cool. It's pretty safe to say we are already in a new climate, and we should definitely be holding our ruling class accountable based on that alone. You know, the genocide is just like a cherry on top. The multiple genocides, in fact, that we're turning a blind eye to or encouraging and facilitating. Um, you may have seen recently some news about the world reaching a new record high temperature, but that's kind of that's kind of bad, you know. Um, it's like again, like my neighbors in Acapulco, it's going to be the people who are least responsible for engineering the conditions for the climate crisis, who are going to be paying the highest price for it. Uh, that's pretty much the definition of injustice as far as I'm concerned. And again, when we connect the fact that the status quo that allowed this is also the one, you know, still currently at the reins, also still currently engineering genocide, maybe now's a good time to like materially challenge them and, eventually bring them to justice. That might be cool. Um, but yeah, I really wanted to talk about this union stuff because, I mean, 6 million workers labor aligned with, doing just that, stopping U.S. military aid to Israel. When it comes to being anti-war, it's one thing to be like posting and talking about it, and it's another thing to materially challenge the status quo. Um, Back in February, India did the same thing. Really cool. It's like when we build out labor power, it turns out we can actually kind of, you know, have access to decision-making control or, standing against that, which is pretty necessary, again, when you're factoring in this stuff, when you're factoring in genocide, when you're factoring in, you know, how our neighbors are suffering in poverty or don't have access to basic necessities like good nutrition, healthcare, housing, etc. Here's just another video in that kind
Worked
of
in fact.
regard, just talking about how unions are really important domestically, not to mention the others for the other reasons I just did, but like, even just for just getting, a dignified working experience. It's like we can get all these birds with one stone. It's like very obvious that's the next kind of direction we need to be going. And so I wanted to talk
Fast
about it.
food for a long time. I know what corporations do. What they do is we make the money, they get rich. They get rich, we get poor. So for me, it's not a good situation. So I'm asking that we stick together. We do this together. That's the only way it's going to get done. Like I said, I've been in this campaign for a long time, and I'm not quitting. I'm not stopping. I'm fighting until the last breath of me. That's how far it goes for me. We make the money.
Yep. And then
So I'm asking.
I think it was a pop-up and I wasn't paying attention. But somewhere it's like they're talking about how we're having to work in, maybe it was a different video. But they were talking about how, people are having to work in like 97 degrees and stuff and these fast food conditions. It's like, dude, what the hell's that about? You know? And then on top of that, aren't getting paid shit, having to, 60% at least or paycheck to paycheck. That's crazy. Meanwhile, another reason just right here, 2023, unionized workers receive a 6.6 average pay raise. There's so many birds with the same stone. Uh, including signing bonuses and other lump sum payments, average increase was 7.3, a record high. Like, dude, that's sick. Yeah, they're calling management counterparts out for cost-cutting moves during the pandemic and economic shutdown. Again, when the system gets stressed, regular working people then are, the ownership class chooses for regular working people to bear the brunt of that. Like, again, that's like the definition of injustice. Just because they have exclusive access to executive decision making capability, they're choosing to, continue lining their own pockets at our community's expenses. That's some bullshit. you know, that's like creating poverty just so they can already, so wealthy people can already be wealthy. Uh, there's plenty of reasons why that is bad. Um, and everybody in that equation, besides the ownership class, is coming out worse for it. Um, Meanwhile, though, our government, you can check a couple of, plenty of recent articles about how the Supreme Court has been aligning with big business, which, you could argue that is overt fascism, right? When the interest of those with consolidated wealth in our state are married together, it's pretty bad. This one in particular was just asinine because it says this ruling was in a case backed by conservative and business lobbying groups that aim to seriously curtail workers' long-standing, uh, let's see what the right was, right to strike. Yeah, like, dude, come on. Um, and again, those same uh, institutions, conservatives and business lobbying groups, are the same guys who are behind the genocide and the ecocide and all that, right? So it's like, dude, let's get with the program. You know what I'm saying? It's like we have an open note test right here. Uh, we pretty much know who the enemy is. We know who is engineering these conditions that are just egregiously unjust, and we also know exactly how to solve them. It's not just unions, but that's a great, where we need to direct our energy for now as we continue to build out these frameworks that can materially challenge the status quo, right? Uh, Here's just another cool union thing I've been wanting to mention for a while. It was in December of last year, but they managed to secure uh, a deal with about 70,000 workers, reducing their work week from 35 to 32 hours a week with full pay. Pretty cool. A lot of benefits. They've since had some issues with this, which is no doubt some tomfoolery on the ownership class's part, but still just shows what can happen if we, organize ourselves. Um, if you want to know more about that, just hop up in the chat GPT. It'll literally tell you, you know, yeah, I just asked it here. Explain how unions can be used by working class people to advocate for their own interests politically and economically. And it lays it right out. It's like, dude, there it is. Easy peasy, you know? And then, when it gave me a pretty kind of, not very overtly materially challenging kind of answer. So I asked it for some more revolutionary ways unions can challenge the status quo. And right there, first one, general strike. Sean Fain is calling for that. Who is the dude in the UAW? He's calling for that in 2028. We've got 4 years to get this stuff together. General strike is pretty much the most powerful tool we have in our belt for, actually establishing, lasting justice for this planet. It's not even just our neighbors or just our country. It's the damn earth. It's like really significant. We got we got to build these frameworks out in this time that we have, if we're gonna like keep existing, or at the very least not watch, you know, potentially 5 billion people's lives be permanently either disrupted or ended because of climate inaction, right? And not to mention, all of our neighbors who suffer and die needlessly right now because of ineffective policy and lack of action in that sense, right? Uh, which, again, that's like some sick shit. Like, why aren't we organizing against that? You know what I'm saying? Um, so yeah, some cool little details about all that stuff. You know, check it out. International solidarity, pretty huge for what's coming up. We have the climate crisis, that's going to be an international thing. We have all this AI tomfoolery, that's another international thing. It's like a huge deal. Um, in fact, there's a video I wanted to mention later on here that touches on that. And then I just asked it for some useful material frameworks because that's like, how to do this stuff. Um, you know, really cool stuff. Not saying like everybody can just tap into this stuff, but like, in our communities, when we see stuff like this popping up, it's like, yeah, dude, let's get our energy behind it. Or, if we have the means, let's start it ourselves. It's cool stuff. I'm gonna make another video about that shortly because, I think that we should. um, Education and consciousness raising stuff, really cool. It's something you can do in your spare time in an afternoon, and it really does make a significant impact. Um, this stuff is a little more takes a little longer than an afternoon, but we should still be doing all of it. Um, anyway, back to the Israel thing. So Al Jazeera had a nice little live kind of feed about today, and they were just, you can pretty much just pick any moment throughout this, and it's just absolutely nonsense. Uh, right here, here's a great one. Capitol Police use pepper spray against protesters as Netanyahu praises soldiers. And they're blaming the crowd for becoming violent because they failed to obey an order to move back. Yeah. Relatives of captives in Gaza walk out. They also, somewhere, yeah, he's saying anti-war protesters should be ashamed. Like, what kind of a sentence is that, right? And it gets worse. um, Let me just double check. Yeah, they are arresting Jewish activists, calling for an arms embargo. Yeah, here it is. Relatives of Israeli captives reportedly arrested for protesting. Reportedly. They have it literally a photo right there. Nice. Um, Here's just some cool footage I saw today that I wanted to share. Again, everybody's feed should have this on it. Pretty cool. Meanwhile, this one's not as fun. Cool though. Guess to repeat that safe shit.
Back up! We're back, you fucking idiot! We're back! Shut the fuck up! Get the fuck off him! Get the fuck off him!
Shame on you!
Strangling you. Someone's up strangling you.
Yeah, really cool. Really sweet. You know, we have grounds to do this shit.
Shame on you! Shame fucking go! Get that shit away, boy!
You know, great point right here. Here's just another thing. The room stood up to clap when Netanyahu said campus protesters should be ashamed of themselves. Yeah. Like what the fuck, dude? Also talking about the the um the police brutality and whatnot. Yeah, that's particularly pertinent with the recent murder of Sonia Massey. And, you know, if you look into that, you know, really since George Floyd, there has not really been a decrease in that. And it's like, you know, almost every day, if not at least every week, there's something equivalent to George Floyd happening. There's just a little bit of it, right? Like that's kind of egregious. You know, we should, you know, kind of be looking past reform at that point, right? It's like how do you reform something like that? I'll wait. You know, it's like that's the whole institution is wrong and the whole policy behind it is wrong. It's like how do we expect to address crime, right? All these guys do is respond to crime and they do it poorly. Um, you know, there's just more, you know, Kwame Ture's eternal words, still being right, still waiting for everybody to kind of get the program. It's like, yeah, we can't really, yeah, no. And it's like, you know, I'm not calling for violence explicitly, but I'm saying we need to materially challenge the status quo. We can't just expect protests and voting and stuff like that to mitigate this stuff. Again, protests and voting got us here. This is not where we want to be. Protests and voting got us here. You know, that's a little bit inadequate in the face of a genocide, in the face of ecocide, in the face of our neighbors dying on the street without health care or food. You know what I'm saying? Like that's all violence. That's what I was trying to say the other day. That shit is all violence. Uh so I mean, you know, let's challenge that shit right back. And you know, I got some more stuff to kind of talk about in that regard as well. But let's go ahead and scroll through this. You know, great example too. Because again, to me, this shit is just as significant, if not more. This shit's costing thousands of lives already. You know, we look at who's most responsible for the climate crisis, and a lot of them are right here standing up for genocide. It's like, dude, throw them out already. What the fuck? Yeah. But yeah, I really would encourage people to check out this whole thing about what's, you know, what's going on. Because again, you got to know what our government's doing, man. Yeah, great point. I've been wanting to talk about this too, about all the fear mongering around Project 2025. It's like, dude, the Heritage Foundation has had significant leeway over our politics for like the last 40 years. They were really involved with Reagan. They were involved with Trump. You know, here they are just doing more of the stuff they're going to be doing. And the Democrats have pretty much laid down and allowed all this stuff to happen every step of the way, right? So they're just as responsible, you know, with that in mind. They literally let me see if I can, yeah, right here. I just saw this the other day. It's just posted like last week. Openly admit they pushed Biden to block Bernie. That sure does sound familiar. It's like, dude, they're pretty much telling us exactly who they are, you know? Um, it's like, and again, this also tells you who they are. They're not going to give us responsible policy. We can't expect that. So, are we just going to let 5 billion people die? Is that really the fabric of the character that we're comprised of, or are we gonna do something a little better than that? you know, like it's unfortunate we're born in this time where that's kind of the decision we have to make and the stuff we have to do. But again, like look at what's been going on to Native American people for like centuries. They've been having to deal with this shit. Why not? Why not do it? So look at all the people who have had to suffer under imperialism. They've all had to deal with this shit. Why not, deal with some shit? We can't just keep putting our heads in the sand. Um, I think I'll post a video eventually about some stuff in that regard too. I've been wanting to talk about some Native American stuff. Here we're just talking about some necropolitics and whatnot. Yeah, I've mentioned that before. Again, the same deal with the stuff. This I forgot to pull it up, but there's a really cool account called Woke Scientists sharing some words. I would recommend we all check that out because it's pretty cool. Um, yeah, it's nice. um, Instagram always fucks up when I hit the back button. Oh yeah, here's exactly what I was saying already. There's just some stuff. God dang it. Let me make sure there's not any more stuff I wanted to discuss. Yeah. Yeah. I guess. Yeah. This one, yeah, this tweet really goes hard. Yeah, pressure. That's how you get stuff, man. You can't just wait for votes. Yeah, this video kind of goes into talking about AI and the climate and the kind of intersection between that and like what we're dealing with. Uh, he was kind of talking about a little bit about some policy stuff. So that's why I wanted to mention it. But the whole thing's really good. So if y'all feel inclined, it's the wide boundary impacts of AI with Daniel Schmattenberger on the Nate Hagen's little podcast. I guess this is a podcast. I'm not really sure. Um, on top of that, I wanted to yap some more about the BSA, of course, talking about dual power, building local concerted efforts to move the economy toward collective ownership and solidarity with directly democratic institutions that are interconnected and provide communities with control of their labor and land, which again, that's all we really need to do. All we need to do is control our own labor and land, and these fuckers have no more power. Yeah, destroy capitalism by making it obsolete in the building of a better system based upon all the stuff. And yeah, check it out. Like seriously, our strategy and the dual power map tabs are really insightful. And then, of course, they got a lot of cool stuff in mumbo jumbo. This is the blacksocialist.us website. Check it out, please. This is like, as far as I'm concerned, this is like the best framework I've ever seen across the last couple of years, you know, for navigating as we move forward and actually holding these fuckers accountable for being um, for doing this shit and being genocide heirs. You know. Another cool thing, and that kind of in this regard, with talking about what's going on in Sudan, they're kind of this among all other things mentioned in here. She mentions, how people are doing grassroots kind of organizing and actually materially challenging their status quo. So again, hopped on ChatGPT, was asking, what are some ways they're doing that? What are some frameworks? And here we go. There you go again, unions and worker movements, as I was mentioning before. And then just some more stuff. Rising out of necessity due to gaps in government services in times of crisis. We definitely have those going on. Principles of community, solidarity, and mutual aid. That's stuff we need. And again, that's stuff that the original Black Panther Party understood. They were doing that shit, and that's why the cops were fucking with them as much as they were, right? They did the community breakfast, they had the clinics. Again, when the state engages in repression, like I was saying, uh, with the when the courts are ruling against unions and stuff, when they're repressing stuff, they're really telling us what works, right? When they're repressing the Black Panthers, they're telling us that stuff will work. When they were oppressing people who were against the Vietnam War, like that's really all we got to do is study that stuff. Um, because they're telling on themselves when they choose to repress. There's something else I was about to say in that regard. Oh, yeah, yeah. Remember, the first instance of gun control was because of the Black Panther Party, right? um, it should go without saying, right? But yeah, here's just some more cool stuff. There's the unions again. And there's like, how do these things get authority and get access to executive decision making capabilities? We have all this cool stuff. You know, it's just some stuff to study and see what can be implemented by frameworks that are already in our community and stuff that we might be fortunate enough to establish, right? Like, for example, in my community, I've been doing some stuff with some local conservation, like nature conservation and stuff, and just seeing, where we can build that out for broader community stuff, capacity building. Huge, right? All this stuff's really cool. Just would recommend, ChatGPT, as much as it kind of sucks, it also is really good for learning this kind of stuff in just a real succinct kind of way. And then anywhere you need it to get more in depth, you can just be like, hey, point number 6, tell me more about that, and it'll do it. It's fucking awesome. um, and then just one last thing I wanted to mention is Frantz Fanon's ideas relating to decolonization and what that actually means. He wrote it in 1961. He'd been through it, so it's like, pretty good kind of thing to reference in these times. So it's like pretty cool stuff. Would wholeheartedly recommend at least chat GPTing it if you're not going to read it. And he, talks about how violence isn't overtly necessary, but we need to do stuff that materially challenges the stuff. Um, right now we're just here. We're just at awareness and education. But then we get to mobilization, then we get to real empowerment, then we get to political action, then we get to, you know, if necessary, they'll choose if it is necessary or not. We could do all this stuff non-violently. All that dual power stuff, none of it overtly requires violence, but it is violent to the status quo because it seeks to completely eliminate it, right? We and for good reason, right? It should be eliminated. It results in genocide, ecocide, suffering for people who were not involved at all in the executive decision-making processes that led to the policy and the economic conditions. So fuck it, do away with it, right? Why the hell should that stick around? It was established in the first place by genocide and by, with like institutions like slavery and already ecocidal kind of ways of doing, stuff that's just insane, right? It results in stuff like this. That's insane. Go listen to what native people have been saying about all this stuff. They're like, dude, y'all are off your damn rocker. And we're over here saying, oh, nah, dude, this is progress. It's like, dude, we're destroying the planet. What are you talking about? You know? Anyway, um, yeah. Institution building, that's basically kind of the same stuff that the BSA is talking about. All this stuff, ongoing vigilance and adaptation, huge, right? That gets into like dialectics and stuff. Really cool. Anyway, yeah, that's all my stuff I wanted to talk about. Thanks for checking this out. If you listened to the whole thing, I know it was a bit uh, long. Anyway, yeah, thanks. Much love and best wishes to everybody as we move forward.